So for a while I've been pretty obsessed with those old 80s style synth vocal sounds that you found on old keyboards and synthesizers. And the idea behind this is I wanted to make something which is a hybrid of a synthesizer and a lot of those old 80s sounds, and then put them into a single package. PHONA is an actual synthesizer, and then it's a sampler as well. So it's got like an oscillator section in it so that you can make synth sounds using that. And it's designed to sound really analog and really warm and gritty. And then you can combine that with a load of layers of vintage vocal samples. So what we've done is we recorded a load of our own vocals and then processed it in certain ways to make it sound quite retro. And then we've also taken some sounds from recorded from like classic 80s keyboards. And then inside PHONA you can lock them together. I think in addition to having the sounds themselves, we wanted to create a sound engine which had a lot of effects and possibilities that you couldn't get beforehand. So building this from scratch was pretty interesting. So we've designed it to be as light as possible. First time ever, PHONA is completely standalone, so you don't need any kind of contact instrument to run it. So here it is, here's PHONA, which is our vocal inspired synthesizer plugin. So this is the main interface. PHONA is split into two different sections. So we've got the front end interface here with all the main controls, but then there's actually much more going on in the engine tab in the back end. So I'll start here because it will give you an idea of how everything works. You assign different sources using this sources tab to build your sound. So you could have a sample or a oscillator sound assigned to all of these source channels, and then you can control them individually here, solo and mute them on the right hand side. You have the choice of going with the sample multi, which gives you access to the sound sets that we have loaded in. So at the moment we've got something called Sky Vox 1 into this source 1, and then we have another vocal into the second source, another vocal into the third, and then we've got a noise layer coming from the oscillator on the fourth source sound. So together you can see there's some modulation going here. Together they sound like this. So I'll show you the modulation matrix. You can use LFOs and envelopes to modulate anything within the plugin. So you literally just go add envelope, and then you can choose the shape. And then at the bottom here, you literally just assign it to whatever destination you want. So you could get a LFO and then just assign it to, you know, something in the FX or changing the pulse width on one of the synths. And then what's really cool is that you can assign it on a per source basis. So you could decide that you just want to affect the filter cutoff of, you know, the first two sources, for example, and then not apply it to the rest. And that allows you to get more texture in your patches. Like I think in this one, for example, we've got the noise layer not going through the filter, and then we've got one of the synths is going through it. And so you get a kind of pad sound and then that kind of stuttering volume effect over the top of it. So on the FX tab, you can add all sorts of stuff to modulate the sound. So we've got the obvious stuff like filters, delay, reverb. There's a formant shifter. There's a drift. There's like analog drift. We've also got this stutter effect, which is basically like a mini shaper. So if you know our shaper plugin, then you'll know what I'm talking about. But basically, it's a multi-grid sidechain. So in this plugin, you can see I've got two different stutter effects applied. One of them is doing a ramp down, and that is affecting source 3. And then we've got another one up here, which is doing a ramp up, and that is affecting every source. So as a result, I'm guessing we'll find that there's two kind of textured rhythmic parts that are playing within this patch. We've got the MIDI tab here, which allows you to go from polyphonic mode to monophonic mode to portamento. You can change the octave, you can add glide, you can change the dynamic curve of the MIDI controller that you're using and how much it might be applied. And then there's an arpeggiator down here. Final thing to show you in this engine section is this oscillator bit here. Anything which you add into the oscillator section, you can apply to a source. So if I had a, wanted to add like a pulse sound or a source sound to oscillator 1, and then assign that over here. We've designed it to sound really gritty, so I think you will enjoy the oscillator section, and the same goes for the filters. We've really tried to make them sound interesting and have a lot of the inherent characteristics you'd find in an analog synth. So on the front end tab, a lot of the controls are inherently linked to stuff within the engine. For example, on the cutoff, resonance, envelope, this is obviously coming from the filter in the FX tab at the top here. We've got the filter envelope here. On the right hand side, we've got the volume envelope, attack, decay, sustain, release. Above that, we've got spread, which is voice spread. So you go from very mono to having the voices spread across the stereo field. So on the right hand side, we've got polyphonic, monophonic, and legato modes. We've also got a formant shifter on this, which is quite useful for a lot of the vocal sounds to make them sound kind of interesting or degraded. Then we've got reverb and echo. We've got the main pitch, and then we've got detune over here. So that's the actual detune amount here. And then the speed. For the arpeggiator section at the bottom, we've got rate, which is the speed, and then we've got swing, so that you can add swing to the rhythm if you want. It defaults to the center. And then we've got gate, so that you can make things sound tighter if you like. And then finally there's octave, which denotes how many octaves you want the arpeggiator to play over. So at the moment we've got this on a high value, so I think it will be playing over probably 4 octaves. And then there's more controls for the arpeggiator in the back end if you want to tweak things in more detail.